Oh, hi, I didn't notice you there. How the fuck are you guys doing? Look at the size of this. How are you guys doing? I'm trying out a new location. As of current, I am only working one job, so I am, as I've said before, going to try to post on YouTube a bit more regularly since I have the time to. But today, my necklace is fucked up. With having more time for YouTube, I have more time to be able to listen to you guys and take your recommendations and suggestions and basically answer all the questions that you guys have been asking me. One of the most asked questions that I've gotten over the past month, I don't even know that it's a question. This isn't really a question. I guess sometimes it's phrased as a question. Can you talk about your move from Texas to Colorado? If you couldn't tell by my giant water bottle that I have to take with me everywhere now, I live in Colorado now. I moved here June 1st. And the reason I've kind of put off talking about my move from Texas to Colorado is because I'm not entirely sure what anyone means when they say, can you talk about your move from Texas to Colorado, or talk about your move? What specifics of the move? What do you mean talk about the move we just drove? Since I don't know exactly what you want, this isn't a lighter, I'm going to just give you everything and you can take from that what you will. That's fucking dead. So I guess I better get into it. So, to start from the real beginning, we're gonna rewind about 3 years ago. My boyfriend, Blake, and I had been together for about 6 months when his best friend and his best friend at the time, girlfriend, she's now his wife, moved from New York to Colorado, and they invited Blake to move with them. I personally said, I don't want to. We've been dating for 6 months. No. And so that's where the seed was planted. The seed was planted like over 3 years ago, the move to Colorado. Every single time that our lease came up, Blake had the intention of moving to Colorado with me. But something always kind of got in the way. At one point, Blake did actually move to Colorado for about 4 months, and I stayed here, but that was like over 2 years ago. He's since moved back to Texas with me, and we stayed there for a while. So over 3 years ago, the idea of moving to Colorado was planted into my boyfriend's brain, and he's been wanting to do it ever since. Personally, whenever I moved to Texas, I did the whole moving to a state without really knowing anyone. Like, I had family, but that family ended up like kicking me out and turning their backs on me. So I've done the moving to a state with nothing kind of thing. And I refused to do that in Colorado. So if I felt that I didn't have enough money saved up, we would basically just push the move to a further date. Because like I said, I've done the moving to a new state with nothing kind of thing, like literally nothing, like I had no money. And so if I was going to have anything, I was going to have a very comfortable amount of money for me to move. That basically consisted of me getting a second job as a bartender where I made stupid good money. And that stupid good money just made me not want to move to Colorado even more because I was making stupid good money. Like, seriously. So when I got that job, it was about 4 months into that job when we had intentions to move to Colorado. I ended up talking Blake out of it because I was like, I've only been working at this job for 4 months. I've made this like crazy amount of money. I want to see what I can do in a year. And so we ended up pushing it off for another year. I worked at the bar and I worked at the restaurant that I had been working at for years for over the course of a year at this point. I saved up more than enough money that made me comfortable to move. We bought our plane tickets to go to Colorado. Again, we have 2 friends here, my boyfriend's best friend and his wife. So we bought tickets to Colorado to come visit with them, and while we were visiting with them, what we were going to do was apartment hunt. About a week before we were supposed to go to get our apartment. So like, the way that trip was timed, I had been working both jobs, making good money. My boyfriend had quit his restaurant job and started focusing on his bar job. He was making more money. We ended up both just kind of grinding for about a year straight, and at this point we were ready to move. So we were within like maybe a month or 2 of our lease being up, and that's why we were going to get an apartment. About a week before our trip to Colorado to go find an apartment, the whole world shut down. You guys remember that little thing called the pandemic that's still going on? Yeah, that kind of stopped our plans. Nobody could travel, so we ended up not being able to go to Colorado to find an apartment. We moved our trip, basically. We called, we were like, hey, you know, COVID, we can't go, can we reschedule this? And they were like, yeah, you can reschedule it whenever you want. It was the beginning of COVID. We had absolutely no idea how long it was going to last, so we gave ourselves like a good 6 months to move the trip. We were like, okay, in 6 months we'll do this. We extended our lease because our lease was about to be up, but we extended our lease for another 6 months because we did still have intentions of moving. So we extended our lease, and then we got laid off from our jobs, and then we were unemployed. Me being unemployed did not make me want to move to Colorado, because if I was not consistently replacing and adding to the money that I was actively spending on rent and bills and stuff, then I'm not doing it. So we ended up signing our lease for a year. So we put it off again because we've not been working for like a while now. So essentially we extended it another year. We still have the 2 friends in Colorado waiting on our arrival. So March 2018, we decide we are going to be making the steps towards moving towards Colorado, and we don't actually take those real steps until May 2021. At this point, you can probably imagine Blake and I were really only supposed to be in the positions that we were in Texas for about 4 to 6 months, because then we were supposed to move. But instead, we ended up staying a lot longer. We built a lot more relationships. We got very grounded and comfortable in our jobs, in our city, financially. So at this point, the move to Colorado was kind of like, we can move to Colorado, or if we stay in Texas, we can get a bigger apartment and keep like staying where we are. And so basically what we did was we bought tickets to come visit Colorado, and we were going to apartment hunt. And if we did not find an apartment that I liked, because I'm very picky, then we weren't gonna move. In Texas, I was like, I like the life that we have right now. I will not settle for less. So if I have to take a step back in housing, I'm not going to move for that. So we went to Colorado with the idea that if we don't find an apartment, we were just gonna stay in Texas and we were just gonna get a bigger apartment. So we come to visit Colorado, you know, we are still seeing our friends here, so we're having a good time, and the day of the apartment hunting comes. And lo and motherfucking behold, I fall in love with this apartment that we are currently sitting in. So after we applied for the apartment, we didn't tell any of our friends officially that we were moving yet, because if we didn't get approved, then we didn't have an apartment, and if we didn't have this apartment, I was not going to motherfucking move. At this point, we are awaiting approval on the apartment. With the question, can you talk about your move from Texas to Colorado? A lot of people have been asking me about proof of employment for getting a new apartment. This is super common in the service industry, is getting a letter from your employer, because in the service industry, a lot of people are paid cash. The bar that I worked at, I was paid cash. If I got a paycheck, they'd be like 50 cents to $2. So we didn't have any provable income on paper. So what we would do is we would just get a letter from an employer. Our friends here that wanted us to move here 3 years ago had been spending that entire 3 years building up this business. It's a bakery and a bar. The location is opening up soon. We did technically have those jobs, and they were our employers. So we just asked for a letter from an employer guaranteeing what our income will be, and they sign it, and we just send it over to them. I've done it in every apartment that I've lived in. You don't have to, it's not like I was able to get this because my friends just so happen to be the owners of the business that, you know, we're working at. I've done this before at different restaurants. You just ask your manager, hey, I'm moving to this apartment. This is how much I make. Can you write this letter for me and send it to this email? I've never had an issue. It always works for me. So they got everything that they needed, and we ended up getting approved for the apartment. Once we got approved for the apartment, they sent over the lease to sign. And once it was signed, it was done. It was in motion. We are officially moving to Colorado at this point. Not like every single time our lease has been up in the past 3 years where we're like, we're gonna do it. Now let's re-sign our lease. We signed a lease in Colorado. There's no breaking it unless we want to pay thousands of dollars to do so. We've We then email our current apartment in Texas saying that we will not be renewing our lease. And at this point, we're nervous as fuck because we have not told any of our friends. Now, the reason that we put off telling our friends was because we had done this before. Every single time our lease was up, we'd be like, okay, we're gonna move to Colorado, and then we end up not doing it. So this time, we wanted to wait until everything was completely set so there was no going back, so that we don't pull another, oh, our lease is up, let's say that we're moving to Colorado, and then end up not doing it. So we had to wait till everything was completely set in motion before we decided to tell people. But now that we had decided, now when everything was completely set in motion, we only had 30 days left in the state. The first person I told was my manager at my bar, just because we lived in a very tight-knit service industry community. So if I had told, all of my friends are service industry, so if I had told any of my friends and it had gotten back to my manager before I could talk to her, I would not have liked that. So I went ahead and I told her first. She took it well. I got lots of congratulations. After that, I told my best friend. The way that I broke the news to her is I got us these friendship necklaces. Mine's the moon. I also have a tattoo of a moon. There's a cat hanging from the moon. And she got a star. And it said like something about no matter how close or how far, we'll always be friends no matter where you are. I don't know. I thought it would be nice. I wear mine every day. But yeah, I told my best friends. At that point, that was when my boyfriend also had to tell his friends. So at this point, we have an apartment in Colorado. We have jobs in Colorado. And we've told our employers and all our friends that we are moving to Colorado. We have maybe 3 weeks left in the state. So my boyfriend is working literally every single day. I am working literally every single day. Just trying to save up as much money as we can while also trying to make time for our friends in our last weeks there. Our last night there was the last night of May, which was a Monday night. And Mondays at the bar were my first by myself shift. I didn't have to work this last shift, but I wanted to work the last shift because I wanted to end it on the same note that I began it with. I began it on Monday nights. Those are my nights. So like literally my last shift there was our last day there. We were moving at 4 a.m. the next day to try to make it into Colorado by 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. before the office closes so that we could get our keys and get into our apartment and everything. So like we are on a time crunch. It's my last shift. It was the best shift of my life. All of my friends came to see me. All of my regulars came to see me. They all tipped me like it's your last day and you're about to move to a different state. I made $1,300 that night. It was the best. They all wrote me like super sweet notes. I kept all of them and, they gave me all my good lucks and everything. I had my final goodbye with my final in-person goodbye with my best friend. And everyone that I was leaving behind. My coworkers stayed and helped me close the bar. We hung out, we drank together. They cashed me out. Blake arrived because Blake had to go home so that he could get some sleep because he was going to be making the drive to Colorado because I had been working till it was like 3:30 at this point. So like 3:30 or so, Blake picks me up. We go back to the apartment and we pick up the cats. That was the worst thing in the entire world during the move, but getting them into the crate was the hardest thing in the world. I literally have scars from it. This is one of them. Like Taz and Earl just tore my arms. I mean, I was just bleeding and scraped up everywhere. We ended up somehow getting them in the cage. They're freaking out. They're stressed as hell. We take them to the car. And about 4:30 is when we get on the road. And we ended up making it here around 3 o'clock or so. They gave us our keys. We started moving in. We had rented a pod, one of those shipping pods, not from the company pods. Yeah, it completely destroyed our stuff. And we had it all like stacked really well and tied the fuck down. And when we opened it, it looked like nothing had even been tied down in the first place. Boxes were so thrown that they had broken open. Our TV was completely shattered. Almost everything in there was fucking broken. It cost us $1,500 fucking dollars, which is also why I'm so glad that we saved up as much motherfucking money as we can, and why I'm glad that I made $1,300 on my last day because we had to buy a new TV. Once we saw that all of our shit was destroyed, we were just so stressed out at that point that we really only took our mattress and our clothes out. Just a really stressful first day, so we didn't unpack anything until the next day. But yeah, see, this is why I didn't answer like can you talk about your move from Texas to Colorado on Instagram or TikTok or anything, because this is so long. And I don't even know if I like answered your question properly or if you got all the information that you needed, but I tried my best. That's basically my move from Texas to Colorado. And that's all I have. So I also have some stuff in the works with Blake. You have that to look forward to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Deuces.